A good ending isn't necessarily just one that leaves you satisfied. Some of the most profoundly affecting endings are precisely the opposite of that. The Shining's finale lives on in infamy because of its woozy, vague magic, and anything that poses a question or offers a huge statement like that can be the difference between a good ending and a great one. A great ending also isn't always enough. Take Independence Day Resurgence, for instance, whose ending is as brilliantly entertaining as it is utterly ludicrous, but comes at the end of a film that is near unwatchably bad. So to be truly great, you also have to crown something great already, and luckily for modern film fans, there have been some incredible examples over the past decade. Now that it's creeping to its end, it's time to look back on the full stops and ... that defined the decade. I'm Simon from WhatCulture.com, and this is the 10 greatest movie endings of the decade. Number 10, Avengers Infinity War. We knew that Thanos was coming well before his big purple face appeared at the start of Infinity War and killed off both Loki and Heimdall as a show of force. And we even knew what he was looking to do with the Infinity Stones, but that still didn't prepare anyone for the film's stunning end. Given the cliffhanger nature of the two-part movie, it's always looked like something big was going to happen at the end of the Russos' first Infinity epic, but there can be few out there who seriously thought they'd kill off half of the heroes, and indeed, half of existence. This stinger came at the end of 2 and a bit hours of us wrestling with the morality of Thanos' plan, with some people even believing him to be right, such was the strength of the writing, and after what looks like a triumphant victory as Thor slams his weapon into the Mad Titan's chest, we get the hardest of all counters as Thanos snapped and broke hearts everywhere. Number 9, Whiplash. Featuring one of the greatest movie villains of all time, and taking in a deeply compelling story of the price of excellence, and how easily the lines between dedication and something more dangerous can be blurred, Whiplash is a stunning first movie from Damien Chazelle. Focusing on similar themes to both La La Land and First Man, in terms of the focus on personal drive to achieve, Whiplash is the most visceral of all 3 endings, and the triumph that comes out of it comes at a great cost. We're set up to believe that the finale is Fletcher's final revenge on Miles Teller's Andrew for testifying against him and costing him his job, and that revelation knocks the wind out of you as Andrew leaves the stage desperate and humiliated. But then he returns, takes the performance on his own terms, and even impresses Fletcher. It's like one of those intoxicating Karate Kid moments, and it loses nothing every time you rewatch it. Number 8, Kill List. Long before Nicolas Cage teamed up with some bees and made the end of The Wicker Man something of a joke, the original was one of the most genius nasty endings in the history of nasty endings. When you learn that Edward Woodward's Sergeant Neil Howie was always the intended sacrifice, there's a breathless helplessness that quickly takes over. The same can be said of the awful revelation at the end of Kill List. Beginning ostensibly as the normal Hitman movie, Ben Wheatley's twisting, maniac monster of a movie turns into something markedly different with dizzying ferocity, unveiling its true dark and strange underbelly before we see Neil Maskell's Jay invited to take on his final target, the Hunchback, who is a masked and cloaked person armed with a knife he must fight. When he kills the unknown person, he removes the sheet to find his own wife with their son strapped to her back. It's a stunning end that sucks all of the wind out of you and the crowning glory on a film that could never be called expected. Number 7, Inception. Inception is right up there with the best sci-fi movies of all time, and not just the decade, and a large part of the film's notoriety, though not necessarily its success, comes down to the final question posed by one of the most provocative final images in cinema. Much like The Shining's mysterious ending, the image of Cobb's totem spinning as the audience waits on tenterhooks to find out if he was dreaming all along, is the crowning deception of a film obsessed with the idea of appearance versus reality. We're constantly told to question things, including things as traditionally sacred as character archetypes and the fallibility of the narrator, while offered the chance to find a stabilizer, the totems mostly, and then right at the end that stability is whipped away. That's truly confident filmmaking for you. Number 6, Love, Simon. Not everything has to be vague to be great, and not all love stories need to be entirely fraught. And Love, Simon, which might be one of the most underappreciated movies of the entire decade, is a case of hope and love blossoming out of trauma in the most irresistible way. Based on the coming-of-age novel by Becky Albertalli, Greg Berlanti's romantic teen comedy is deeply rooted in its moment and takes in the likes of Riverdale and Gossip Girl in its bones to tell the tale of a boy first blackmailed for his secret gay online romance and then outed by his blackmailer thanks to a burn board gossip website. It makes for difficult watching at times, but we grow with Simon as he learns who he is and casts off his own repressions, as he finds a new relationship with his family and tries to discover the secret identity of his online crush. It sounds fairly simple, but it's far from it, and seeing Blue, the secret lover, reveal himself at the end in front of everyone Simon knows at a fairground is the kind of delightful, utterly irresistible schmaltz that Hollywood badly undervalues these days. Number 5, The Dark Knight Rises. This might be considered something of a controversial one, but The Dark Knight Rises' final moments are the fitting end to Alfred's trilogy. Yes, Alfred's trilogy. Judged in terms of Batman and his duty to Gotham, it's a little bit of a betrayal, which a lot of people were hung up on for a long time there. But it isn't just Batman. This is Christopher Nolan's take on Batman, and while he draws on the comics, he isn't limited by them. His character and the dynamics that define him are entirely different, and after a series of profound traumas, to see him achieve happiness is the right note to end on. Bruce Wayne's story is one of a father attempting to get his son to turn away from the inevitable. Here, Alfred is the father figure, and seeing him and Bruce share a knowing smile across the cafe as we realise that Batman survived the bomb is simple, deeply affecting cinema at its best. Number 4, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. For all the suggestions that the studio may have wanted a slither of happiness in the finale, Rogue One was never going to end on a positive note. If it had, we would have known the characters who are key to its plot beyond the limits of this story. For them to be brand new to us, they all had to die. The big finale of Rogue One sees the unlikely band of heroes achieve their goal, which they all knew was a suicide mission all along, as they're all devastatingly killed off. As Jyn and Cassian almost settle down to accept their fate, there's a flash of hope mixed in with the sadness that is very clever. And then, as if that wasn't enough, we get the excellent, underappreciated Vader moment tagged on after that point that bleeds into the start of A New Hope and gives us, finally, a reason to believe Vader's hype before he turns up in Episode 4. It's atmospheric, scary, and tub-thumpingly brilliant action cinema. The only sour note is that awful de-aged Princess Leia ghoul that appears. Number 3, Avengers Endgame. After the profound emotional turmoil of Infinity War's end, Avengers Endgame had a year of almost unspeakable white-hot hype to contend with, and it somehow still managed to deliver. It's a triumph of spectacle and emotional heft that perfectly ends the first age of MCU heroes and offers a look at a hopeful future. But the ending's most important notes, and its most successful ones, are the bits centred around the fates of Tony Stark and Captain America. First, we get Tony's almost inevitable end as he finally proves he is the man to lay down on the wire and gets to save the world, an agenda that's been destroying him without destroying his legacy and a chance of a family, albeit briefly. When he snaps his fingers and rebukes Thanos with "I am Iron Man," it invokes a curious mix of chest-bursting pride and leg-hollowing distress. That's great writing. And then we get to see Captain America's end and the solution to the tragedy of his very existence, as he's given the chance to go back and reclaim his life after giving everything altruistically. Watching him return and pass on the mantle to Sam, and then wistfully refuse to tell the tale of his life, is just gloriously good. Number 2, Logan. Logan might well be the most disturbing ending of any comic book movie ever. Hell, it might well have a claim to being the most distressing movie ending of all time, but that doesn't mean it's not utterly brilliant. If films are judged solely on their ability to make an audience feel, and they probably should be, then Logan's heartbreaking, wonderful ending is right up there with the very best of all time. After watching our hero drag his makeshift family across America on a quest for hope that looks increasingly desperate, the climax drops an unthinkable evil on the situation, and we're forced to deal first with Professor X's death, and then Logan's own fallibility. The end comes as it should, and Logan dies, having helped save his clone Laura, and in those final moments, he tells her to defy what she was designed to be, and she acknowledges that he is her father. It's almost too hard to even think about it, and it's how the Fox X-Men franchise should have ended. Number 1, La La Land. What is it about sad endings that makes them stand out that little bit extra? It was always going to take something big to dethrone Logan as the best ending of the decade, and Damien Chazelle's heartbreaking full stop on his meditation on the cost of dreaming is the only candidate possible. After a heady romantic musical romp, we watch Emma Stone's Mia and Ryan Gosling's Seb drawn apart irresistibly as they both follow their dreams. Their love is unquestionable, but Chazelle's genius is that he posits the idea that it is impossible as long as they both want true happiness, and the only cost that will leave either of them happy is their relationship. They split up without fanfare, but then years later Mia returns and they come across one another again in Seb's now successful jazz club, and he seemingly conjures up an image of what their life and love could have been through his music. What the audience wants it to have been, in fact, in a triumphant montage that is studded with loss. It's like being in a storm, and you're forced to acknowledge, as the pair share a wistful final smile, that true love actually sometimes doesn't conquer all. Which other film endings from the past decade belong in this list? Share your picks below in the comments section, and please remember to like, share and subscribe. I've been Simon from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you next time.